Welcome to Chicks Who Fly, a podcast dedicated to women pilots and women in aviation. My name is Anaya, and I am your host. I am a vocalist, a DJ, and a producer, and I'm also a student pilot. I am currently working on my private pilot certificate, and while I am getting some finances in place to finish my training, I have decided to stay active in the aviation community by starting this podcast, among other things. I plan to interview and feature different women pilots and women in aviation and bring those interviews to you. And hopefully you guys enjoy the interviews as much as I enjoy spending time with these amazing ladies. In today's episode of Chicks Who Fly, we tried something different. I had arranged to interview Erin Olivier, and on the day our call was scheduled, she happened to be spending time with another female pilot friend. So, in this episode, I get to have a conversation with two pilots. Private pilot Erin Olivier, who at the time of this recording was still working on her instrument rating, but has since passed her instrument rating check ride. So congratulations, Erin. Erin also has her AGI and A&P. So in other words, Erin is not only a pilot, she is an aircraft mechanic. The second pilot in today's conversation is Jenna Samuelian, who is a private pilot working on a bachelor's degree in Aviation Management. In this vivid and all over the place conversation, we get to talk about the ups and downs of flight training, options and approaches one can take in flight training, and on the aviation career path. We talk about aviation business, favorite aviation shows and career paths, flying for animal rescue missions, why we prefer women flight instructors, apps that can help student pilots study, fun flights with loved ones, flying competitions, the benefits of getting a job at a local airport, the confidence that comes from learning to fly an airplane, and so much more. If you are enjoying this podcast, please consider following us on Spotify and subscribing on YouTube. It really helps us get the podcast out to more and more people. If you'd really like to be a more intimate part of the whole process of creating this podcast, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon, where our page is called Chicks Who Fly. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can do that at chickswhoflyofficial@gmail.com. And please also feel free to visit our website and connect with us there at chickswhofly.com.
Welcome, you guys. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast and get to talk to both of you today. So welcome to Chicks Who Fly.
Thank you. This is going to be interesting, I think.
I agree. So, Erin, why don't you start and tell me who you are, what your ratings are, and where you're at in your career, and then we can have Jenna do the same.
All right. Well, my name is Erin Olivier, and I am a private pilot with an A&P mechanic certificate as well. And I'm working now on my instrument rating, which I have been working on for a very long time. So I have been working as an aircraft mechanic for the last year, and I just resigned, and I'm living in the desert, and I'm spending all of my savings flying every couple of days working toward the instrument rating. So that's where I'm at. With an intention of switching careers, I would like to fly the planes versus work on them. And then I guess I'll hand the phone to Jenna.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so my name is Jenna Samuelian. I have my private pilot as well, and I'm just finishing my bachelor's in Aviation Management. Taking a little bit of a break from flying to focus on school. Eventually, I'd definitely like to finish my ratings, but I am actually focused more on pursuing a law degree and practicing aviation law.
That sounds amazing. I'm super excited to get people who are in more than one aspect of aviation. So, yes.
Oh, sorry. I just got excited for a second. So, Jenna, we were talking before, just right before we started recording, you were mentioning that you're interested in flying the rescue dogs. Well, Jenna has a rescue that she's on the board. I think she's on the board of. I was a trainer for rescues, and my husband's on the board. So, yeah, we've been in dog rescue for several years now. So it's pretty cool that aviation can have an impact on the rescue world as well. Yeah.
That's amazing. We have to talk about that later. That's so exciting.
Yeah. Yes, I'll let you lead the interview. I'm sorry. I have a problem with stepping over people and jumping ahead sometimes. A lot of strong personalities. Yeah, a lot of strong personalities in aviation for sure.
And it's not just that. This phone, like, sometimes I feel like there's a little bit of a delay, and I have to, I get really excited over here, and I just bite my tongue because I know that with the delay, I'm going to end up stepping on the other person, and then it's going to be no fun. So it's not you, it's me. So, Erin, what got you into aviation? How did that begin for you?
Well, I had never considered anything to do with aviation. I was sort of a wild child, and I was in a lockdown facility as a teenager, and I came out of it having spent so much time thinking about my future. The one definite was that I was going to travel. So I was working in LA as a waitress and bartender, and I did 3 months in Italy. And when I got back, I just wanted to leave again. And so I tried to figure out how I would be able to afford to travel, and I decided to be a flight attendant. But I wanted to be a corporate flight attendant because I wanted to travel internationally, and I didn't want to have to, work for years before I would get perks like traveling internationally. So I started networking, and along the way, I met a girl who was in flight training, and it was like a light bulb went off, and it was the first time I'd considered it. I just didn't even think it was an option, but it was sort of like she was the same age as I was, and I just thought it was a really cool idea, and I thought that, I was sick of waitressing anyways, so it made sense not to be a waitress in the sky. I thought if I could be a pilot, that would be a really cool way to go. So I was inspired by this girl, and I took a lesson. I told my mom and dad. My dad sort of laughed at me and sort of said something, a little bit like, that was the dumbest idea I've ever heard you say. Basically did not really believe that I was going to, that I could be a pilot. And my mom, on the other hand, was very supportive, and she ended up getting me a lesson for a Christmas present out in Thermal. So I had the one discovery flight, and it was the greatest thing I'd ever done with my life. I just felt really, even just the first flight was just so cool, and I just was so inspired, and I wanted to be this person, like that girl that I'd met. I wanted to be, I just thought it was a really cool, challenging, interesting career path, and so I fell in love on that first flight, and I can't say I haven't looked back. It's been a really, really long process. It's been almost 10 years now, and it's slow progress because flying, as you know, is prohibitively expensive. That's where I started. So
amazing. Before I move on to Jenna, I have to tell you that when I was little, I used to say I wanted to be a flight attendant because I had never seen a woman pilot, and that's part of the reason why I started this podcast. But I still have been making a living now doing music, and it's just so volatile because I do music in restaurants and hotels, and for a long time I sang in 5-star hotels in Asia, and that's how I eventually, in reality, figured out how to get to travel for a living in the earlier times of my life. But I've recently lost several gigs in Los Angeles, which were my main gigs.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for what I can do locally. And I've been applying to all the FBOs. I've been applying to the airlines as a flight attendant. And I recently did go to a SkyWest group interview, which was an amazing experience, but it was weird because everybody thought I did like really great. And when they didn't ask me to stay, like several of the people who were already flight attendants for another airline were like completely shocked. And, you know, I don't know what I did or said to make them not move forward with me, and they won't tell you. But I always would have preferred to be a corporate flight attendant. And I have a lot more of that kind of personality and mentality because I lived in 5-star hotels in Asia for a bunch of years, you know?
Yeah.
But,
it's a great, to be a flight attendant is a great way. If the game plan is to travel, then I think that is a great option because ironically, I have been grounded for basically 10 years. I have done almost no traveling. This has been the opposite. I've spent all of my money on flying. And so that, you know, I can't afford to buy any plane tickets. And because, I'm not a career pilot yet, you know, I don't have any benefits. Even when I was working as an aircraft mechanic, I was working on the, Amazon Prime fleet for Atlas Air, which is it's a contract job. So, no benefits. So it's so funny that, you know, flying is definitely is a great career for if you want to travel, but it's so expensive that it's like a good 10 years away. You got to like really be committed to the long term, you know.
Right. It's not the training that takes time. It's for some people, myself definitely included, what takes a long time is the finances.
Yeah, but the training is not easy. I mean, it is a really difficult. I find it to be really difficult. The whole process, if you have test anxiety, it is not a fun career path because you have one check ride after another and you are being, I mean, it's a lot. It's very expensive. The check ride is expensive. You have to pass the written test, which is like a bank of like 1,500 questions and answers that you have to know. And then you have to do an oral test and then the practical portion. And it's just a lot of pressure, a lot of time, a lot of money, and it's like scary. I mean, it's not easy at all. This is not an easy path to choose.
Sorry, do you get test anxiety?
I have the worst test anxiety, which is sort of a good thing because it definitely gets me to study. I come prepared. I think it's a good thing, but it's not so great because it's bad for my health. Like the months leading up to a check ride, I lose weight and I start breaking out everywhere because I just can't handle. I get so wound up, I can't handle it. You can already sort of hear it. I'm actually sort of at the point where I am going to take my instrument check ride, so I have some of that anxiety. I'm a little wound up now, and that's just my normal until this is behind me, until it's in the rear view. I'm so looking forward to it. I just can't even imagine how good it's going to feel to be done with this rating. Oh my goodness. I did this rating. I stopped flying for 3 years right before this. Right before I came back and jumped into the instrument rating again, I had tried to do the instrument rating in one of those immersive, like fast track programs where you do it in like, I don't know, it's like 12, 13 days, something like that. And so you have to come with your, your flight requirement minimums done, and then you work with an instructor and just really cram, and then you do it in like 2 weeks or something. So I paid about $12,000, and because it's one of those programs, they're really expensive because it's fast and they spend a lot of time with you. So, anyways, but I started off. They sent me to Utah, and in the middle of like thunderstorm season, and I was under the hood, and it was so bumpy that I had bruises on my hip bones from the seatbelt, so I wasn't able to fly as many hours in that situation as I was going to need to be flying to get that rating in that short amount of time. So I came back to LA, and they set me up out of Van Nuys with another guy. Well, that guy, unbeknownst to me at the time, had all of his ratings suspended. So I was flying with this instructor who didn't even have a valid private pilot certificate at the time we were flying, and I was under the hood. So basically, I lost almost all my money. I ended up getting $3,000 back from it, but that was it. And the guy got away with it, and I was able to use those hours towards my total time, but wasn't able to use that toward my instrument rating. So I basically stopped flying for 3 years. It was such a bad experience. And so now I've come back in, and just in the last 2 months, I've spent about $13,000. So I've now spent like $26,000 just on the instrument, which is very similar to my private pilot story. Aviation is a crazy, crazy, crazy path to go down. I mean, and there's just a lot of bad actors.
Unfortunately, I'm sorry that you went through all that, but it's definitely good to share those challenges, the highs and the lows, because, maybe someone can learn from that, and maybe after someone hears this, maybe someone can reach out and actually, be of assistance in some way. So who knows?
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely is important. And my story is absolutely not unique at all. That is very common. So you definitely have to be careful. Especially for women, I think there's a lot of things that women can be careful with. When you go to a flight school, you don't know, unless you have other people in aviation who can sort of guide you through the process. You go to a flight school and they say, okay, you're going to fly with Bob, and they assign you to the instructor, and you don't know if you're going to, you're going to spend a lot of time with that person. So you want to have the right chemistry. So everyone makes these mistakes where they go in, they get put with somebody, they get told what they're going to be doing. But you have to remember that you're paying for all of this. So, another good tip would be, if you're going to be, the instructor is like the most important decision you can make, I think. It's crucial that you have a good instructor, because if you stop and have to switch instructors, you're going to have to basically start over each time. And it shouldn't be that way, but it always will be that way. So that's another good tip. You can always check the national database and see what certificates somebody has. You're basically talking to two girls who have had, to take the longest route. I mean, we don't have, this could be a whole thing about what not to do. All the different things to avoid. Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate. I've had a bunch of instructors. I'm quiet because I don't want to step on you, but on the inside, I'm like, I feel you. I've been there. Yes. Yeah. I know.
And that is the thing. That's so important for anybody who is interested in doing this, and especially as a woman. You have to just sort of come in knowing what you're getting into, because there are so many things that can make this a bad experience. That can make you feel like you don't have what it takes. So really the tip is, you need to interview people. They shouldn't be charging you to talk to you so you can get an idea of how that person is going to, how you guys are going to get from point A to point B, with the rating. You want to really get to know your instructor. You want to figure out their game plan, and you want to know even if just their vibe works for you, because you're really going to be spending a lot of time with this person.
Yes.
So yeah.
I had a couple really good fits, but that I couldn't stay with them because of location or because that school was particularly pricey. And then I had a couple really bad fits as far as instructors, and one of them was a Part 41 and 161 school, and it was a young guy here from abroad to build hours, and he came from a culture that tends to be a little more misogynistic, so he would constantly be telling me about his favorite student who clearly wasn't me. And, he would say things that led me to feel like this guy doesn't even like me, so I stopped going there. And then I had another guy who I really liked personality-wise, but we weren't a good match so much learning-wise. And then also that was the time when I started having trouble paying for lessons consistently. So it was a bunch of stuff at once. Maybe now we can get Jenna to tell me how she began, and then we can keep threading it all together.
Yeah. So I'm a third-generation pilot. My grandfather and my father were pilots in the Royal Canadian Air Force. So I think it was kind of a dream of my dad's that one of his children get into aviation as well. Definitely was not my dream in the beginning. I started flying when I was 16, but I was terrified, honestly. It wasn't a good experience in the beginning, and I really didn't fall in love with it until I met my husband, actually, and he does a lot of different aspects of aviation, but he just showed me a lot of the fun parts that I was missing when I was just doing the monotonous lessons. So he's flown in air shows and done formation flying, and took me on, small trips and just made it fun. And I ended up falling in love more with the industry than flying itself. So my goals are not career pilot, but I'm really, really in love with the industry now, and just very excited about that. So I did end up finishing my private, but it took 4 years because the motivation just wasn't there in the beginning. I definitely, got passed around with instructors, partially because of that. Nobody wants to teach a student who isn't motivated. So I had six instructors. One of them was just building time to get on to the next thing for himself, and that happens a lot.
That's when people build time
they're focused on their own goals. I do feel like the structure of that is difficult because your priorities are not theirs. They're working on their own goals at the same time, and so that can definitely lead students to drag out their ratings for sure with having instructors that are only focused on this, their own careers.
Time building,
just building time on.
And then as soon as they get to 15,
and then they leave.
1,500 hour work
out,
and they'll
right.
And then you're passed on, to the next, and that person wants to kind of start you where you are, but they don't know where you are, so you always end up falling back.
To get where you left off with the last person.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of that. Another thing, I think, I know I've definitely had the experience where there's sexual tension in the plane. You get these young guys, so many young guys, and they don't know really how to be around women. So it's just awkward. There's a lot of that going on. I think you have to have a female instructor. The best instructor I had was a female instructor. Female instructor or a very old man?
Well, I've had very old men that there was, sexual tension definitely on his end. So there's some experiences for sure.
Yeah, but I specifically wanted to ask you, who your favorite instructor has been. And before you answer, my favorite instructor is a woman, and she was the first guest that I had on the podcast. I adore that girl. She's an incredible instructor, but she's in Vegas. So that's why I couldn't, like, the day I met her, I was like, you're going to take me to my check ride. Like, you know how some people meet their partner and they can see the day of their wedding?
Yeah.
I flew with this girl and I could see the day of my check ride. However, distance has been a problem. So who has been your favorite instructor? I guess first, Jenna.
Well, you know, Erin's pointing at my husband. I'm sure I'm supposed to say that he was my favorite. He was my last instructor, the one who got me through my check ride. But we actually don't fly that well together as an instructor and student combination. We're much better as partners. But my favorite instructor actually was my very first one. He's a terrible person. He's actually a con artist in the aviation industry, but he was good for me at the time. He got me, you know, through a lot of my fears and pushed me harder than any instructor ever did. So, you know, not the greatest human being, but I needed the hard push in the beginning. So, and then this is Erin. My favorite instructor, like Jenna, actually, I also took 4 years to get my private pilot certificate, and I had 16 instructors. I started in thermal with a young guy who basically kept me in the pattern for 40 hours and didn't really tell me anything about any other aspect of flying or weather or systems or any ground school, nothing. So then I switched over to Bermuda Dunes. I flew for a minute in Bermuda Dunes, and then it got hot out here, so then I moved to L.A. I landed at American Flyers, and it was part of their policy that you don't fly with the same instructor. They want you to fly with different instructors, which I think maybe is because they're going to get more money out of it that way, because it is a little bit of a step back, but their reasoning was because they didn't want you to pick up bad habits from one person. So fly with one person, and the other person comes in and corrects whatever bad habit, and so on and so forth. But finally, I left LA and I went to, I started school. I wanted to get an aviation degree. So I started school in Walnut, California, and I started flying with the school flight club. And I had Anna Mendeville, and she was the best. She was wonderful. She was easy to be around. She had the right amount of compassion, because it had been it had been almost 4 years at that point, and I had so many hours, and I was frustrated, and I didn't know if I could do it. And she built me up, and she told me that I could do it, and she told me I did well, and I passed my check ride with, because of her, and myself, but she has a great reputation, and she pushed me to do scholarships, which I ended up doing some scholarships and being awarded some money for flight training, but yeah, she was wonderful. No sexual tension. She was great. If only I could find another female instructor. It's amazing what the right instructor can do. I mean, you'll get through things so much faster if you have the right chemistry and you've got someone who's really on your team. And now I have John out of Bermuda Dunes. I know you know them because that's actually how we got connected. John Nicolazzi. I feel embarrassed about pronouncing his last name. What if I'm saying it wrong? But John Nicolazzi, and he's a really high time corporate pilot. He was. I think actually he's still working as a corporate pilot.
He's who I'm flying with too. I mean, I'm not currently flying very much, but when I fly here, I fly with John, and I haven't flown with him much, but the little I've had, I thought he was really great. What do you think?
I think he's wonderful. Zero sexual tension. I mean, he's very professional, and he's just really, really easygoing. You know, it's like that guy who made you feel like he didn't like you very much because he just wasn't supportive, and he was maybe comparing you to other students. And John is the opposite of all that. He is so neutral. I mean, neutral is a really good word for him. He's just professional and neutral, and it's all focused on the flying. There's not a whole lot of distractions or having to, you know, do small talk in the plane. It's silence and we focus. And he's just an easy guy. And he's a very talented instructor because I'm working on the instrument, which is a very hard rating. And I did it before with another instructor, so I have something to kind of compare. It's night and day working with him versus the other guy that I had been with previously. It's like little tips and tricks that he's figured out over the years that young, fresh out of, school CFIIs wouldn't know, how to explain or they wouldn't even know. He's wonderful. I don't know. He's wonderful. That's all I have to say about John. He's great. And David, who owns the flight school, is great too. It's really a warm environment, and they're really good guys. And it's a good flight school, good operation. And those guys are not going to be leaving. They do it because they enjoy being an instructor, not because they're building hours to get to 1,500 to get into the regional airlines. So it's a good situation. That's another thing. It's make sure that your instructor is a career instructor if you want to get the best instructor. Anna, unfortunately, became an air traffic controller. So she's not an instructor anymore, which is really sad because she was really, really a good instructor, and we need more female instructors.
Absolutely. I also love both David and John, and I even applied actually for a job at the FBO there at Bermuda Dunes. Right now they weren't looking for anybody, but they seemed really great. We seemed to hit it off, and maybe there will be another opportunity. The American Flyers that you were flying with, was it at Santa Monica?
It was Santa Monica, yeah.
Okay, because I am a member of the 99s that meets in Santa Monica, and several of the 99s, the LA 99s, fly out of American Flyers. So I know a couple people there.
I think there are good things about American Flyers. Like, for example, they have seminars. To prep for a written exam, you can go do like a weekend seminar. And it's great. It's like 8 hours of ground school each day. And I think it's a couple $100, but for the amount of ground school, it's such a good value. And I always recommend to everybody that will listen to me, that's a good way to go. Just spend a weekend in LA and do the ground school out there. They have that. But they're very expensive. They also have an internship program. Actually, they have an internship program. You should look into that.
My God.
Yeah, they you know what? And they love women, because when I started there, they were really excited about me. They wanted me to do the internship program. But I don't know why I didn't jump on that opportunity, but I do know two girls that did do it, basically working as like receptionists and dispatch. And they would get like so many, it's paid internship too, which is great. So it's paid and you get so many hours each month. And so they got through their CFI, I think in like a year and a half through that.
I can't believe I didn't know this.
Also, do you know about Girls in Flight training? It's called GIFT. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. I've yet to look into it. Cheryl Pitzer, who was one of the previous episodes, she's amazing. She's a captain for FedEx, and she flies for a flying eye hospital, and she has camels and donkeys, and she's got like the coolest story. But
What?
Yeah.
She flies for an animal hospital, and she has camels and dogs. Did I just hear that right, or did I not hear that right?
I said too many things at once. She flies for a Flying Eye Hospital, which is a charity that I think is run by FedEx. And then she also has and flies different animals. Like she's flown whales and dolphins. And
God, that's so cool.
It's freaking cool. And
that is
she
my dream
says,
come true.
well, you should look into FedEx because she's been with them for 24 years. She started as a Continental Airlines flight attendant. She was an aircraft dispatcher, a DP, you know, the whole deal. But she says that in FedEx you often fly horses and zoo animals, and she's even gotten to fly whales and dolphins. And at home she has camels and donkeys and horses and dogs and cats, and it's really effing cool. So.
That is really cool. That is like my fantasy. Well, you know, I've never wanted to be an airline pilot. I was really, I used to watch, actually, so when I really first started getting into flying, after the Discovery flight, I started watching videos of Svetlana Kapanina, the aerobatic pilot. And it was just it was the coolest thing I'd seen. So I would like watch these videos of aerobatic pilots, formation flying, and National Geographic Worst Place to Fly. And those shows were my favorite. I would watch.
I love that show.
You know that show? Oh my goodness.
Yes.
There was one, it was like Flying Wild Zimbabwe or something. And there was one like that, and then there was one that was in Indonesia, and they were landing on like mountain peaks, and they would come to like, they would land, and then this like tribe would come and offer them like a chicken or something. And it was like they'd never seen, you know, it was so cool. That's sort of what I want to do. I really wanted to be a bush pilot, but because
and did you see that they have like planes that have crashed trying to make those landings like underneath, and that then the tribes like take the wing and they make a hut, you know?
Oh my goodness, yeah. It's pretty cool. I love those shows. It's so funny. It's Worst Place to Fly, and like, and that's my inspiration for flying. I'm like, yes. Well, that's just pretty incredible. There's just so many different directions you can go. Yeah, for sure. I just wish that I could be a bush pilot in like South Africa and like help transport, you know, maybe animals that had been hurt like by hunt. I don't know. I could fantasize about all the, you know. But I did see a video. I did see a video recently, and it was this guy, and he must be like a bush pilot. He was flying, you know. I don't know what he was flying, but it was, you know, it was a high wing, small aircraft, and he was flying like a chimp on his lap.
I posted that yesterday.
You saw that? Isn't that the greatest video? If I could do that all the time, if I could get like a bush job where like somehow I'm working for like a rescue, I mean, can they just make that job so that I can have that job? That would be the coolest. If you could mix animals and aviation, and I know like, definitely pilots for pause, and there are ways to do that. There are ways, but especially, you know, in parts of Africa that are a little bit more remote, I'm sure they fly, you know, animals. Yeah, that's where I want to be. That's my dream. But
I want to do the same, and I've heard other people say, I want to become a pilot so I can shoot poachers with tranquilizer darts. So.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that.
How fun would that be?
I would love to do that. I want to shoot some poachers.
Me too.
Start. Yes, I can specify.
Sorry. Where were we?
I don't even know. What were we even talking about? What do we want to do? What kind of fun? I don't even know. Where did this conversation start? Like,
I feel the same way, but I feel so many similarities to what you were just saying. I'm not interested in being an airline pilot. I watch those shows that you're talking about, and I love them, and I hate that not all the episodes are available on YouTube, you know?
I know. Where do we find those episodes now? You know, I have Disney Plus. And they have, do they have Discovery or National Geographic? I don't remember. I think they have National Geographic. So I was really excited and but I couldn't find any of those shows. I need to find where those shows are. I mean, I'll buy them. I need to buy them. They're the best, though. That's like inspiration. That's a great thing to do. If you need like some aviation porn to like motivate you a little bit here and there. You know, we need to watch a couple episodes actually. I think Jenna and I are going to do that after this. Watch some aviation porn.
That sounds amazing. I want to come over.
Speaking of, you should. You're in the desert. We're in the desert. You should come over. I actually have a flight sim right now set up. A friend lent me a flight sim, and it's got a welded frame. So you've got the chair, you've got the yoke, the rudder pedals, and the mix and throttle. And then I have a big TV set up for the picture, and it is really fun. You should come over.
Well, let's definitely talk about that. I would love to. Plus, I don't yet know a lot of people out here, and much less aviation people. So I would really love to hang out. That would be amazing.
When David and John told me about you, I was like, definitely give her my number, because I also don't know a whole lot of people out here. I grew up out here, but I moved away, and I've only been back just for a couple of months while I've been working on my ratings. But it's so good to, especially, it would be great. We could do ground school together. It would just be really nice. I think we would get along, and I think it would be good for both of us to know each other and fly or do ground school together, whatever. In the meantime,
I 100% agree. Thank you. Yes. And by the way, sorry, I meant to tell you earlier, I did my ground school for the private pilot written exam and all that stuff with M0A with Jason Schapper online.
Right.
And that worked really great for me. I got an 86 on my private pilot knowledge exam.
That's really good, yeah.
And that's really good for saving money, not paying, as much ground school because you come in knowing the concepts,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's a good way. I mean, ground school is really important. But when you're doing the written test, another thing I have to show you. I actually have a lot of things to show you. There are a bunch of apps that are really useful, where you can save money, like for the written, or for like, I'm getting overly excited right now. I'm getting like overwhelmed. I have so many things to tell you. Quizlet for the oral, Quizlet or Crammed. It's like this flashcard app, and you can search. Previous people have made like sets for private pilot, instrument, commercial, anything you could possibly want. So look for like instrument pilot oral, and you get these sets of flashcards that previous pilots have made. And that's a great thing. And then also for the written exams, there's let me see, it's called Prepware, and it's just this bank of all the questions, and you can just on your phone just go through it, just sort of mindlessly, like, And there's a trick too. They used to have, what was the Shepherd Air? Shepherd Air was a program, and the philosophy was you'd have to go through the first time through the bank only seeing the correct answer. You could not see any wrong answers. And that's a great strategy. It's the law of primacy. It's the first thing you want to just see what, you don't want to dilute anything. You only want to see the right answer. So that's another trick. I'm so excited. I want to tell you all my things that I've learned in this process, because it's helpful. There are these little things that can make a big difference. And you just learn it through experience. So, or knowing somebody who, experienced it and now has it, like John. That's why John's such a good instructor. It just comes from experience, and they're, But anyways, what were we talking about?
Well, we were talking about what you wanted to do in your career, and then I don't think Jenna had told me what she was interested in doing.
Here's Jenna.
Yeah, so I thought about flying in the Air Force. I love C-17s. They're my all-time favorite aircraft. And I may still. I had a baby 4 months ago, and so that obviously put anything like that on pause. But ultimately, I would like to be an attorney. There are a couple of issues in the industry that I'm pretty passionate about. One of them is protecting like GA airport from closing. Santa Monica was, that's a huge bummer. And, and then also with air traffic and the direction that's going to go if they privatize or, constantly discussion almost every year now. So, and the impact that has had in Europe with their air traffic system being privatized. And so there are a couple of issues that I'm, pretty passionate about. And I think that I have the most impact on it, serving an attorney. So that's my career goal. Yeah, we went to school together. We did our bachelor's program together, which, if you want to go to school, I have some great recommendations there too. But but we did our bachelor's program together, and my favorite class was the aviation law class. By far. So interesting. Oh my goodness. Honestly, I feel like the best aviation jobs are the best thing to do is, do something outside of aviation that you can make money with, that you can afford to just have fun with aviation. That's the best way to do aviation. Don't work in aviation. Work outside of it, and then have a business or something. Money is the key. Lawyer would be great for that. And you know what? Working at the FBO is such a good idea. You can do anything. If you're on the airport, like I know so many people who they make friends, and you're friendly, so you're definitely going to make friends. But you work at the airport, and you meet people, and you'll get those offers like, oh, you can fly my plane, just put fuel in it. People want to, it's totally who you know. I mean, that's every industry, I feel like, almost. But yeah, it's a lot of who you know. Because if people can really help you, I mean, that's a great deal. If it's a financial issue, having somebody, that's why you take a job at the airport, like that. Mm-hmm. Like, doesn't have to pay a lot. Just want to meet people, network, and be there for, the opportunity when it comes up. Because it would come up, for sure.
Absolutely. We in the Los Angeles 99s, we have more than one attorney who flies, on the side. And then also here locally, my husband and I play once a month music at Mr. Lyons, which is a steakhouse in Palm Springs, a really nice one. And I'm vegan, by the way, but that's a whole other Ricky Lake show. But one of the managers there, who's awesome, his name is Patrick. He is a commercially rated pilot, and I found out one day when I went to pick up my check for having played with my husband the night before, and he was like talking to me about it, and basically the reason he got into food and beverage was so that he could make money and he could, have money to fly. I think a lot of people who don't want to do it as a career do it from that angle. But for me, I spent my whole life getting really good at performing live and recording and stuff like that. But because of how old I am and the shift that the music industry had at the precise moment when it happened, I had set up a winning game for an old paradigm that became obsolete really quickly. And now making a living is volatile and a struggle, and I'm dedicated and I'm good and I'm reliable and I'm professional and I'm unique. You know what I mean? And that's not enough.
I think like what you're doing is creative. I think the podcast, I think that's so creative. And then, you could do even like Jason Shepard. You could do like online. You could do videos. You could actually just start doing ground school, teaching people, or just talking about it, information, because there's not a whole lot of women doing that. And those guys have made careers out of that. Like Jason Shepard has made a whole career out of that. And he's making so much more money than he would just being a pilot. I mean, and the thing too, if you want to stay in GA, I think it does make sense to have a job outside of aviation, because unless you're flying the airlines, that's the only way to really get paid unless you're an instructor. I mean, that's not the only way. You could be doing tours, but,
I'd like to just get a loan, because I really do want to do it as a career. I am open to the idea of doing the right airline if that were to come along, or, present itself and I decided to go after it. But I also tend to think more along the lines of airlines and, you know, remote places where you do like this jaw-droppingly amazing kind of flying. I've discussed on previous episodes that one of my favorite ideas is to work with a seaplane airline, like island hopping and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do, Jenna?
So I'd like to work for AOPA or NACAR, someone who's got a lot of pull in the industry, you know, just to kind of guide the direction that it's going. So yeah, ultimately I'd like to work for one of the big players. Not cool. The FAA though, probably directly against the FAA, but another thing.
Well, you know, my husband and I are looking for land out in Joshua Tree, specifically in Landers. And I went to where the old Landers Airport used to be. Are you familiar with that airport?
No, I'm not.
Well, I mean, it doesn't exist anymore. Basically, there's a flat piece of dirt with a little bit of an incline where the runway used to be and a foundation where the restaurant used to be. But I've been really thinking about getting a degree in aviation business because I've been interested in the idea of opening and running a small general aviation airport, maybe even that one, and using it for a lot of animal rescue operations as well. So
that would be incredible.
So I like that we're close to each other and on the same page. It's the first time I'm finding that.
I think we're all sort of cut from the same cloth here.
Yeah.
It's like we got all the same struggles and we have the same interests, or at least you and I have the same interests with the bush flying and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely. If you want to, but you're definitely more interested in like the community, right? So getting the airports open that have been shut down, bringing that back a little bit.
That is so difficult to do.
Yeah, it is difficult to do, but it's so cool that somebody wants to do that.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I'm always attracted to the very difficult projects.
I don't think they realize how much money, you know, even the small airports really bring into a community economically. So, and people don't realize that, and they're so quick to want to sell the land and build more houses. Mm-hmm. But, you know, so I think it's important to educate people who are not in the industry but live around airports. Educate them on how important their little small town airport really is to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really failed at that in Santa Monica for sure.
Yeah, well, and it's not for lack of trying. There was a huge effort.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of corruption in the Santa Monica City Council. I don't know if I can say that on a podcast, but...
Well, you know, who knows? But definitely there was a lot of effort, and they did so many little manipulative things, you know.
And they had closed-door meetings that were technically illegal as well, so there's that.
Yeah, nothing good from Santa Monica Airport. That's just sad. And the landing fees that they imposed every time you were like coming in, even just flying in, they just tried to make it impossible for people to enjoy Santa Monica Airport. So
yeah. What is a favorite flight that you remember having?
Favorite flight? I want to say, I feel like the first thing that just popped into my head was my solo flight. I just remember my first solo, I actually did it at Bermuda Dunes, and I just was sort of laughing maniacally in the plane. Like, I think I went through like a range of emotions, and I was by myself in the plane, like laughing out loud and like talking to myself, like, oh my God, you're doing this? Okay, you're doing this. It's okay. We're going to be okay. You know, like, great, like it's just crazy. And that was it for me. Then I fell in love with flying. That's when it was, you know, and it was just such a cool thing. I'm doing this, you know, I can do this, and it really built me up. I think that's a good thing for, you know, that for me, aviation sort of gave me a lot more confidence in myself, and it makes me feel proud of myself. It's a challenging thing. It's really challenging. So, I love it. I love flying now for that reason.
What about Jenna?
Favorite flight? You know, I think probably my favorite flight was laid out shortly after I met my now husband. He took me to breakfast in his Citabria, and he rolled it a couple times, and it was just a weird thing. This is now how we live our life. That like we fly to breakfast and fly to lunch and whatever, and just making it fun and not so. I don't know. Don't you hate her? Don't you hate her? She's like, we fly to breakfast. We fly. It's the first time realizing like how much fun you can have. Having aviation be a part of your daily life. I don't know. Yeah. Aviation is pretty incredible. So. Yeah. It makes the world a lot smaller place. Yeah. We went to Albuquerque to have lunch with friends. We just went to Albuquerque and came back. It was crazy. Yeah, flying with friends too. It was such a cool experience. Flying. I used to take my mom to Santa Barbara Airport, and I love flying my mom to Santa Barbara Airport. We would park, and then we would walk to the beach, because you can just walk to the beach, and there's that restaurant that's right on the sand. And I mean, it's just it's such a cool. We were on a flying team together. That's how Jenna and I met, actually. And
a flying team. Tell me about that.
Well, you do a bunch. Another hour. Yeah. Well, so we were on a flying team. There are competitions. There are different activities like message drop, where somebody is flying and then the other passenger, they have like an X marked on the runway somewhere, and you have to drop like little potato sack or a cage with a letter in it or something like that. Yeah, like a message in a bottle. Basically, you have to drop it over the target. So you're trying to, it's like precision. Like you work together to get as close as you can to this X on the runway. Well, yeah. So, and I had, and then you have short field, you have different landing competitions, and you have E6B competitions, pre-flight competitions, navigation competitions. So everybody has something to do. Even if you're not licensed yet as a pilot, you can still participate in all the other competitions. But so we had terrible weather during our flying competitions, and it was we were hosting. We're the airport that was hosting the competitions, our home airport, and we did terribly in this competition. I was supposed to fill in for somebody in the message drop activity as a pilot, and somebody told me to do something funky with my altimeter, and I did it, and I guess it was a big mistake, because I ended up basically doing a flyby, a very low
50 feet or
low,
no,
like 50 to 100 feet off the ground, and it's supposed to be 200. I was very low and very full throttle fast. Like I just remember looking down and seeing the judges scatter. They went in all the different directions, and then for the rest of the day, everybody was saying, "We got to put a NOTAM out for this girl," or something like, "Beware." Everyone was giving me a hard time, and oh my gosh, it was not my best moment flying, but it was funny. I mean, watching the judges scatter, but I was so embarrassed then after that. I kept making other mistakes, like, because I was just so nervous after that, and everyone was making fun of me. I remember I had to do like another competition right after that, and I was so distracted by everybody making fun of me and calling me out for what I'd just done. I forgot my headset. I had to stop the competition so I could get out of the plane, go get my headset, come back in. I think I'd forgotten one other thing. I mean, it was a mess.
But it makes a really awesome story.
It's a very embarrassing story. Yeah, it's funny. The judges like running from me.
We've covered a lot of stuff, and it's definitely not been the most linear conversation.
I know. I'm all over the place. I'm like, it's like a game of association. I hear one thing, and then I get into this different track. I'm like, oh yeah, and that reminds me of, So I apologize for that. That's just how I communicate pretty much all the time.
Well, the problem is that I'm exactly the same way, and it's a mental exercise for me to keep the conversations in a certain way, but then because there's three of us and it's a whole new, I think it's going to be fun for people. I think these stories are great, and I just found out there's such a thing as flying competitions. The geek in me is like having a party right now.
You know, if you wanted to go to school, so we both did. We went to community college in Walnut called Mount San Antonio, and I recommend it. I recommend it so much, and it's a great way to do your ground school. And if you actually are in the aviation program, you can apply your certificates for class credits, to get your degree faster. I mean, you can get your, just and you get the cheaper rate by flying with their flight school that's affiliated with the college, and then you get to do the competitions and things like that. And you're flying at a bracket, that area, Walnut. I really recommend it. I don't know anyone who's been very unhappy with Mount Sac.
No, and their transfer program at Southern Illinois University is pretty incredible.
Yeah, you could do it. Yeah, you could do your aviation. We both have our aviation management degree, so it's exactly what you sort of said you wanted.
Totally.
Which is definitely the step to. And the great thing about it too, if you don't want to spend a whole lot of time, is that you can do it in how many months was it? How many months is that?
16 months.
16 months. It's weekends. So they fly the professors in on the weekends. So it's just 2-day seminars every other weekend for 16 months or something. It's accelerated. And they've got great professors, and you get to do the aviation law class. It's just you get just a really good,
you touch on a little bit of
a little bit of everything, yeah. So that's a cool thing to do.
And this is by bracket, you're saying. I flew there once.
Yeah, that's a bracket. It's not a bracket, and the school is just right by there.
What's the name of the school?
Bracket is the school is called Mount Sac or Mount San Antonio Community College.
Okay.
And they have that program with Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, that is the satellite bachelor's program that I was just telling you about that we did. Well, yeah. That's every other weekend where the professors, they fly them in for seminar-style classes. So you're basically done in 2 or 3. Each class is 2 or 3 or 4 weekends.
Yeah, 3 weekends. So the first weekend, you find out what class it is, and then the next weekend you meet it's the midterm, and then the next one it's the final. It's just it's so
really
fly through it.
That sounds awesome. And what do you love about bracket? I only flew there once, and I was just backseating for my cousin who was doing some IFR currency stuff. So what do you love about it?
The air traffic controllers. They're the best. They're the best in Southern California. They're the best. They're the best from any experience I've ever had. I can think they're the nicest air traffic controllers.
Well, a lot of those air traffic controllers went through the Mount Sac program too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a cool thing because they're alumni for the same school. So
I like that a lot. I like this. I don't know, but they're such nice people over there, and they have the bracket. They've got the cafe right on the runway, and they've got the pilot store right there. It's just a really good setup, and it's just a really nice, comfortable airport, and everybody is really friendly, and there's a lot of different operations going on. Actually, a bunch of different flight schools. They have helicopter. They've got the police. I don't know. They've got a lot going on over there. Even the air traffic controllers just have so much character. There's this one really sassy lady. And it's so fun to listen to the ATIS when she's the one giving the messages, because it's just so sassy. There's so much attitude. It's just fun. And then there's another guy who sounds like Cleveland, from Family Guy. I think it's Family Guy. Yeah, Cleveland. Sounds just like him. And they're just so nice, really patient. You could just sort of talk to them. It's a really fun airport. It's probably my favorite.
I love it. Thank you so much for telling me that, because that day I just went in and out. My the place where I had been flying in El Monte is Universal Air Academy, and they have a location at Brackett. And that's where I had the young guy who was always talking to me about his favorite student who wasn't me.
Right, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about now, because I also flew out of Universal. I flew with Universal a fair bit, and I totally know what you're talking about.
I spent a lot of time in Asia, so I'm very familiar with the the social dynamics. But what happened was he went on vacation, and this other guy came in and subbed, and he was an amazing match for me. He was really strict. He was already flying for the regionals, and it was he was actually Egyptian, which is a super direct type of cultural way of communicating, and I really respond to that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, girls, you need more female instructors who want to be instructors.
There's a great one in Santa Monica, but she's at Proteus, and Proteus is where I started flying. But I personally just, at that time couldn't afford the prices at Proteus.
Yeah. American Flyers is so pricey, and that school I'm sure is really pricey. Santa Monica's got to be like one of the more expensive areas, like for sure, for the flying. Bermuda Dunes is actually not that bad. It's definitely, they've got the more expensive instructors because they're career instructors, but they also have like a slightly less expensive aircraft. $130 for a 172. What? $130? Wet. Yeah. For a 172 per hour is not a bad deal. Well, I get really passionate about it because I think there's a vicious cycle that happens with that 1,500-hour thing.
Definitely, the 1,500-hour rule has had a huge impact.
Well, because the airlines, so before, the airlines were able to basically not pay their pilots. The regionals would not pay these pilots. So basically people are in like $200,000 of debt, and then they get on with the airline, pays them less than what like the city bus driver makes, and so they're unable to pay off their debt, and they have to fly into where the airport, where the home base is, the hub. And usually it's somewhere where they can't afford to live, so they get to fly in. Then they don't get per diem for the night that they arrive before their flight. So they have to figure out their own accommodations, which can be just sleeping on the ground in the pilot lounge or on the couch in the pilot lounge, whatever. But it's just such a bad system. But they could do it because these people were so committed. They have $200,000 into it. There's no turning back. This is their career, and they love flying. So they're going to put up with whatever. They're going to jump through whatever, hoops and hurdles they have to. And the airlines know it. They know how much is at stake for these pilots. They know how much they can just do whatever they want because they know that they have these people on the hook. They could get away with it, and they did get away with it for such a long time until it got really dangerous because these pilots weren't getting enough sleep and they weren't, healthy and safe to fly really. And so it's gotten a little bit better, but it's up to 1,500 hours now because that was going on. People were really struggling. They weren't getting enough sleep. And then there was a really sad accident that happened in like Buffalo, New York or something. Yeah. And basically the pilots were like overtired. And really I think that was the biggest cause of the accident. And instead of
the
blaming,
officer had low time. So
right.
they focused on that, which is really...
But it wasn't, I don't even think it was super low time. So basically, they scapegoated, they blamed it on the pilots when really the conditions that they were living in were not suitable for somebody who should be flying the plane, not being paid enough to basically afford to get good sleep because they can't afford to get, a room or anything. There's, these people just weren't taken care of. And instead of blaming the airlines for the way that we had been doing this, where we were squeezing these people who don't have, who are just trying to get out of debt and move on with their career, pay their dues, they were just taking such advantage of those people. And instead of
looking at that and blaming the airlines for the situation. They blamed the pilots, and they said it was because the pilots didn't have enough time. Actually, 500 hours is when you are technically the safest, because after that you can get a little bit complacent, I guess. But so you want to be like, so actually this 1,500-hour thing is really excessive, and really you're incurring more debt. You're really exacerbating that same situation. But at least now, and now you have the CFIs who the goal is to get 1,500 hours. They've already put however much money, they have the bachelor's degree, they have to pay for the bachelor's degree, they got to pay for all their flight training, maybe they get to spend $200,000. And now on top of that, they have to now build like 1,000 hours. How are you going to do that but to be a CFI and just build time on somebody else's? So that's the problem. Now you have all these people that the incentive is just to build time because they have to, because that's what we've done now. We've created this 1,500-hour nightmare. And
right. That just makes it so much more expensive. It makes the situation worse.
And it makes the CFIs are not there to be CFIs. They basically have to do this to time build. And so as soon as they become decent CFIs, they get plucked away for the airline. And then you get another brand new CFI who's not really, as soon as they get to be a decent CFI, they're gone. So you just have this revolving door, and obviously because of the conditions, they've spent so much money. It's like it's hard to be really. It's sort of like, well, this is what I have to do for myself. You have to sort of, it's dog eat dog. Like this is not a good situation for somebody. It's not like teamwork here. It's like, well, this is, I have my own debt and my own dreams, so that's what I'm going to have to do. I'm just going to have to, follow these steps that they've put out in front of for me, and I get really frustrated about it. I think there's so many problems with the way that this.
But there are other ways to build time, like people can do aerial survey. There are other low time pilot jobs.
I guess there are. But, even bush flying, that was a way that people used to build time. And now when I look, sometimes they want like 1,000 hours. Yeah, which is not, requirements are crazy. The requirements have definitely changed. Everybody wants high time now. And I think a lot of that is for the insurance. If you have higher time, then the rate is cheaper for the business. So they can.
Well, I really think the best way to build hours is to buy your own training plane. They're not expensive, and if you do a lease back to the school, you can really mitigate a lot of the cost and even make a little money back. And
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, that's a good situation. Yeah, that's a good situation if you can find a school that needs another that wants to do that with you. Lease back for a long time.
I had a school that was going to do it with me, but that was the school that I was going to in Van Nuys, and then
I don't need to go into that again. My Van Nuys story is sad. So.
Yeah, this guy, I liked him. He was he was in charge of the school. He was the school manager, and he had a lot of time, and he was really knowledgeable, and he didn't take on any students, but he took me on, and we got along, and he was great. But it just got to be really difficult at that moment for me to pay to fly consistently.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is what happened with him, but I think that maybe that was frustrating him a little bit. And then I don't blame him. So then the dynamic, was a little, I think, damaged because I think he was frustrated that I was, not being able to show up consistently. And I understand that. And that's what I assume. I've actually never talked about this with him, but when I was there, I was flying a Grumman trainer because one of my friends at the 99s had told me to consider buying a Grumman Tiger because they were cheaper to maintain and that they were really.
I want.
Me too. We should get one together.
We could get one together.
I would love that. I mean, I've been looking to buy a plane for a while. And the other thing I wanted to do was sign up for M0A again and do my written for my instrument and my commercial while I'm still getting the funds together to finish my private. I think once I get my private, things will gain a little momentum. It's just right now it feels like I'm pushing a boulder up a hill.
Yep. I know what you mean. I feel the same way. Like, I think that's one thing most of us can really understand and relate to. It's just an uphill, it's just one long effort. Like, it's so much work. But what are you going to do? Well, like, we're still all doing it. So, yeah.
I want to know from each one of you, what's your favorite thing about being a pilot and what advice you have for up-and-coming pilots and student pilots?
Okay. Well, I think, and I talked about this earlier, but for me, especially with my background, I really was a troubled teen, and I don't think anybody had a whole lot of confidence that I was going to see any sort of success as an adult. And flying, I even have some social anxiety. I actually have a lot of social anxiety, which sort of doesn't come across, but I really do. And it's really almost like debilitating sometimes. But when I fly, I'm so focused. Like everything leaves my mind, and I'm able to just channel into flying. Like that's the only thing. So any like anxiety, any worries, I get like some reprieve, And then also every time after I fly, I just feel like I'm really happy with myself. I feel confident. I feel like I know what I'm doing with my life. I feel like I have a purpose, and I feel like I belong in the plane. Like, so I just feel good about who I am because I feel like I know I'm doing the right thing for me after I'm done flying. So it builds me up. So that's what I love the most about flying is how it makes me feel about myself. And what was the other thing you said? What was the other question?
Any advice that you wanted to leave?
Any advice? Well, there are so many things. I would love to make sure that people don't have to go through some of the, there's just so many things that we all go through, and it would just be nice to have some advice ahead of time so that you could try and, steer yourself away from any of those situations. But, definitely having the money in place ahead of time. I would have to say, not to stop and start is the biggest thing. Your instructor and your funding are your two biggest things. You need to have the right instructor for you. And you need to really take time and make sure you research these people and you get a really good idea of whether or not you can work with that person, because you are going to really depend on that person a lot. That's huge. So do your research and also get your funding in order. You want to get at least, I would say $13,000 if you want to do your private pilot. It sounds like a lot, at least. But it sounds like a lot, but you just want to. I know, I did too. Yeah. For 4 years, though, if you stop and start, you're going to spend so much more money in the long run. But, have the money if you can. Do whatever you can. Just wait until you have the money so that you can do this and not be stressed out the entire time. You're still going to be stressed out, but, it's true. Yeah. So then I'm going to pass it to Jenna.
My favorite thing, obviously the freedom is incredible, but my favorite experience is probably doing formations you just got to be on the whole time because it's not just you anymore. There's another aircraft and it's really close, and at any moment, either of you can really suck it up pretty badly. So I think formations are my favorite thing because it just takes it to a whole other level of intensity. So that's definitely been my favorite. And as for advice, it's all about the instructor and consistency. So whatever you got to do to be able to fly consistently, having the money there, taking time off work, you really need to eat, sleep, and breathe with that rating, in order to get it done for the least amount of money. Because, the longer you drag it out, you're going to be dumping money into it, and that's exactly what we did. So,
that's what I'm still doing.
any delay will cost me, like, I have now my instrument check ride for various reasons, like engine failure, the weather. Right now working with John, these things have been coming up. It's been almost a joke. I mean, I feel like I'm going a little crazy here because one bad thing happens. I feel so unlucky. But I've now pushed my check ride. This is the 5th date that I've had. So there have been 4 pushbacks for various reasons. And not only that, every time I've pushed this date, it's cost me like a couple $1,000. So on top of it. So it's like a nightmare, but yeah, the only way out of it is through it. So root for me. But yeah.
Yeah, girl.
Yeah.
Cool. That is terrific advice. That's actually really great, and it applies perfectly to me because that's what I'm doing. I'm waiting to start flying consistently when it's actually going to make a difference. And in the meantime, I feel like it's going to only help me if I sign up for M0A and do the commercial and instrument. And it'll also make me, I think, a safer pilot by the time I'm a private pilot.
Yeah. I actually got my A&P so that I could work in aviation and make money. I literally got my A&P because I wanted to, first of all, I want to be a safer pilot. But I spent the last year saving. So I saved $25,000, and now I'm living. Because my parents were gracious enough to let me back into their home when after they finally got me out. Yeah, they're letting me back here, so I'm back in the desert because my parents live out here, and I'm living in the casita. So I'm not spending my money on rent right now, so that I can just put my savings towards. That's what I did. I just took a year, saved up $25,000, which should be enough to get through the instrument commercial. I'm hoping, and I'm not spending any money on anything else. So those are the sort of things that you just have to do. You just have to.
This podcast is such a good way for us to network and see like what ways we can help each other out. It's just a really great thing.
And there are so many different types of us, so many different types of pilots. Like there's so many different, I think I don't feel like I'm very similar to some. I don't know. I feel like the aviation community can be a little bit like Republican and like a little bit like Girl Scout, and then you've got some crazy characters like us, which, there's a lot of crazy people in aviation. I don't know what draws us all to, I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's fun. It's fun to listen to all the different types of people that are into it because it does attract like everybody, every different type of person.
Yeah. Sorry, you guys are going to love my friend Reggie. She's flying out of Proteus, and she works with a rescue organization that gets dogs out of China for that freaking horrendous festival. And I lived in India for a long time singing in 5-star hotels, but she lived in India like for real for a few years, and she brought back 3 dogs that are really cute. She brings them when I DJ at Shutters in Santa Monica. She brings the dogs into the lobby because Shutters is animal friendly.
Yeah, I think most places in LA are really animal friendly. And I think they can't even ask you about the dogs because there's so many emotional support animals. So I love LA for those reasons. We're both huge dog people. We're both big animal people. Jenna actually does a lot more. She works with rescue in Tehachapi called SOS Dog Rescue.
Yeah, and last year my husband flew a couple of feral dogs to a special sanctuary up in Michigan. So that was a really cool experience to take these dogs that they're so messed up from abuse, and they lived like under a house. It was just awful. It was totally broken dogs. And so they're now living in a really cool sanctuary. So that was a really fun thing to be able to do, and I definitely want to get more involved in animal transportation.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I think we should definitely talk about that. My cousin lives in Colorado, and she used to run animal rescues as well, and she had been wanting to study actually animal rights law when she was younger, and ended up, doing something else instead. But I think there's a lot of us who are really into that. And I think it's something a lot of us are really passionate about. And maybe we can even put together a nonprofit and buy an airplane under the name of the nonprofit, you know.
Yeah, that's actually stuff that Jenna has said to me. Yeah, I want to do a nonprofit and have the planes under the nonprofit, and that would be another way that we could get, you know, two birds with one stone, like get the dogs and get the planes. So you'd be able to write a lot of stuff off while at the same time doing something good and doing something that you love.
And that concludes the conversation I got to have with Erin Olivier and Jenna Samuelian. Thank you so much for hanging out with us here at Chicks Who Fly. We really enjoy doing this podcast for you. If you are enjoying this podcast, please consider following us on Spotify and subscribing on YouTube, as well as sharing with all your friends who might enjoy this podcast as well. Also, if you would like to be more intimately involved with the creation of this podcast, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon at Chicks Who Fly. You can reach us at chickswhoflyofficial@gmail.com and on our website, chickswhofly.com. Thank you so much once again, and we look forward to spending some more time with you on the next episode of Chicks Who Fly.